Welcome to the AIPC interviews, where I talk to members of the Artful Eye photography community, among others, about them. It is July 20th, 2020, and in this episode, I'm speaking with a photographer I met on Instagram who hails from Atlanta, Georgia, and it was her images of architecture that just really caught my eye, and I really wanted to have a little chit chat with Michelle Simmons. How are you, Michelle?
I'm good, Greg. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Faring pretty good through this time that we're all experiencing. So, and I think it's getting a little easier on all of us, hopefully. But I understand you suffered some health issues during this pandemic, but you're definitely on the mend. Is that right?
I am. It was about a 6-7 week pneumonia, and it was not real pleasant, but I'm doing much better.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear. So that's going to be enough of the pandemic talk. We'll get on to better and brighter things here. So I'd mentioned that I follow you on Instagram, and I see your photos of architecture and things like that, and they're just absolutely amazing. And then there's also a bunch of pictures that you have with a model who is a ballerina, and that also happens to be your niece, right?
That's right. She's actually my first cousin's daughter, but she's always called me Aunt Michelle, so I call her my niece.
Oh, okay. So she's your second cousin, then technically, but
right.
But niece is fine too. I mean, there's that. If she calls you Auntie Michelle, that's a term of endearment for sure. But the images with her in them are they're so graceful. And there's architecture in all of them too, or in most of them. And I think that the combination of her with the architecture, or whatever the scene is, they complement each other so well. And they're really well they're well taken, well composed. And there was one that I was going through your Instagram stream earlier, and there was one from, if I could find it, it's a fair piece down in the stream. There it is. It was taken with your iPhone 8, I believe, and it was taken on the Jacksonville beach in Florida, and it's a sunset, and she's jumping up in the foreground. So all it is a silhouette of her, with the sunset and the beach in the background. I mean, this picture of just the beach and the sunset would have been amazing, but to have her jumping up like that, you call it Golden Glide. That's the title you've given it, and it's absolutely amazing.
I love that photo.
Yeah, so well captured. It's just unbelievable.
I've learned a big lesson here. Go ahead. I learned a big lesson here. If you go to the very end of my feed, that was my very first photo shoot ever with anything or one. And you'll notice everything's still, because when she jumped and moved, I used a burst mode.
That's cool.
But none of them came out. So our second photo shoot was on the beach, and instead of burst mode, I used a live. And then I was able to go frame by frame and pick out the one that was perfect. Most people like burst mode and they have good luck with it, but I don't. Yeah. So I always use the live mode for movement.
I never would have pieced that together looking at this image. I thought it was just, darn good luck for one. but in order to pick that frame, that is just pure genius to use live mode and go through it frame by frame. And see, I don't use live mode that much. And this is just another example where I'm kicking myself, because maybe I should be. I should be using live mode more, because the ability to pick out a frame and have it full resolution and everything else is a fantastic feature of the iPhone, and you used it quite well in that image. That's probably my favorite image on your whole feed.
Thank you. Another thing I learned with live mode, or it's really good for animals and for babies or any
Yeah.
children,
Oh yeah.
because they move so much. But it also takes up a lot of space because you've got, I don't even know how many, maybe 10, 15 frames.
Yeah.
Um, if you pick out the frame that you like and make that your key photo, and up at the top turn the live off, it'll
hmm
only save the one frame.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, so
Yeah.
that's a really
There's,
good feature.
yeah, and that's a good tip too. Um, so let's start from the beginning here, and I'll ask you how you got started taking pictures with your iPhone.
I got started because I travel a lot. I love to travel internationally, especially, and um, I make travel photo books. And
Oh, nice.
I wanted to take better pictures. So I went and looked at cameras, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just be a photographer. And I went and looked at cameras, and there was so much and so much to learn. I thought, well, maybe I'll just keep my point and shoot. and
Yeah.
plus, when you travel with people, they don't want to stop for you to set up and change your lens and all that. So and then right about that time, I happened to come across an iPhone photography course, and I thought, this might help me get better at photos for my travel. And
hmm
I took it, and I fell immediately in love with photography.
Yeah.
And I like the iPhone because for instance, when I change the f-stop, I like to see that change on my phone in the screen. I don't like to guess, you know? So
So, okay, so that begs the question, what app are you using to do that?
I don't always use it, um, but uh, I like Camera Plus,
Oh yeah.
which I know there are a lot of new ones out there. And I'm just used to Camera Plus. I know how to use it. I really like it. So
Do you have
um,
the newer version of it, like Camera Plus 2?
I I I have it, but I always go back to Camera Plus just because I
Oh
haven't
yeah.
bothered to learn the two, and just the plain Camera Plus, it does what I have always wanted to do. So
Yeah. Okay. So when you said change the f-stop though, that um kind of puts a flag up for me because the f-stop is fixed in the iPhone. So are you sure it's not another setting that you're changing? Is it the shutter speed maybe or the ISO?
um, it it could be I could have said the wrong thing when I said Camera Plus. I know the f-stop you can change on the native phone on the 11 if you're in portrait mode.
Oh, yes. Okay. 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 Yes, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, I could do that. I got the 10s Max and I can do that with it. Um, but this is the oldest phone you can do it with. But yes, you are correct. If you're in portrait mode on the 10s Max or the 11 or 11 Pro, you can change the f-stop with a slider. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you
So
can
that's what you
also
meant.
change it. You can also change it after you've taken the photo,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is
That's
cool.
another cool thing. Yeah. In fact, I was just playing around with that concept yesterday on a picture I took. So it's really neat having that functionality in the device.
Uh,
So when you took the course, where did you take the course from?
It was I took it online. It
hmm
was the iPhone Academy, and
Yeah.
a it was a very long course. And well, I thought it was, but I was really into it, and almost nothing that was taught was anything I already knew because all of it was new to me.
Oh
So
yeah.
after I took that, of course, I had to take the editing course, which that's when I really fell in love, because I love to edit. And
Hmm.
they say you can't take a bad picture and make it good. To me, that's a challenge, is to take a mediocre photo and just edit it to death until I like it.
Yeah.
I know that's
And that,
not what you're supposed to do, but I love to do that.
well, that's creating a piece of art that way. Like a great painter starts with nothing and creates a beautiful painting. So taking even a mediocre photo and editing the heck out of it until you get something that you really like, well, that then now you're talking, right? You've got exactly what you need.
Yeah, and I would say, that is the kind of photographer I am, contrary to a lot of photographers whose work I really respect, is more documentary, is more capturing exactly what's there and what it looks like. And
Yeah,
to me, my immediate thought and goal is, what can I do with this?
yeah. Well, that's the artist coming out of you for sure. So the editing, you must have some editing apps that you like.
I do. I have Lightroom and I have Snapseed. And I have a million others that I download, and I do one thing and just, if Lightroom or Snapseed does it, I just chunk them. I prefer Snapseed, um,
Hmm.
uh, only because I think I'm more used to it and I can work with it easier and faster. And
Yeah,
there's only a couple things that I can see that Lightroom does that Snapseed doesn't. But even more important to me than that, there are a couple things that Snapseed does that Lightroom doesn't, that I use a lot. So if I have to do something very specific that only Lightroom does, like change one color, um,
right. Yeah.
I'll take it into Lightroom, work with it a little, but I always end up back in Snapseed.
Yeah, and Snapseed is probably the most popular editing app on any mobile phone because it's obviously it's for Android as well because Google owns it. But it's free. I've had Snapseed since the days you had to pay for it. I paid $5 for it. But and it's been around a very, very long time, and it's been updated with a lot of nice features and everything else. So I'm not at all surprised that it's your go-to for editing. And looking at your pictures though too, it it doesn't look like you do a lot of I'll call them funky edits or just totally off the wall edits. There's a few that are obviously given some artistic um, touches to them, but a lot of them look like they're you know just kind of massaged a little bit, to make them look a little more appealing, which is I think partly because um, or not partly because, but it's another thing that draws my eye to your images because it looks like the way I would edit them as well. Like it just kind of matches my style in some ways here.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
would that be a fair statement? Is that you don't really do a whole lot to them, but you just kind of give them your little flair, and that's about it?
I would say yes. I would qualify that, though.
Hmm.
I would say I don't do a lot to make them look terribly different, um,
Right.
distort them a lot, but I do a lot because I get picky about, I want this little thing lighter and I want this little place darker and this little place smoother. So
Okay.
even though it may not look that different, to
Hmm.
the when you immediately look at it, I do edit it a lot, just not maybe heavily.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well that's cool. That's a real interesting workflow for sure.
I have
Um,
found that adding and subtracting detail really makes a big difference, but it's a difference that when you look at it, you don't necessarily know why. You know,
oh yeah.
a lot of times I'll take and maybe everybody does this, I don't know, but a lot of times I'll take the detail out of everything but my subject. And
Oh really?
yeah, and even though you can't specifically see it, you almost feel it.
Yeah. I am so glad we're having this conversation because now I'm going to look at your images a little closer and see if I can't pick some of that stuff out because I mean, I'm not the best one for picking out things like that in the first place, but yeah, that's a really interesting concept. Is that something that you learned with the course?
No, it's just
Oh,
just my taste. And
yeah,
and I love to I love architecture, which wasn't in the plan. Um, I love smooth, clean lines and walls. So I
yeah,
almost always take the detail out of the wall, unless
oh
it's a
yeah,
real rustic thing and it's supposed to look rustic, which I don't do a lot of. But
right,
I,
yeah,
although I kept, when I first started this and I pictured myself as a photographer, I pictured myself doing real foggy and misty trees and lanes and
hmm,
kind of fairy type scenes. And I tried that. I tried it a lot, but I wasn't good at it. And for some reason, I just kept coming back to the bold lines and architecture. And no matter where I try to go, I always come back to that. So I guess I guess that means that's my thing.
yeah. That's your niche. You know,
Yeah.
it's working really well for you. I got to tell you.
Thank you.
I mean, you could put a gallery exhibit together with these things. I mean, it's just incredible what you're doing with architecture and then throw your niece in there and for more artistic impression, it's just amazing.
Thank
I
you.
don't know. I just can't rave enough about them. But
Thank you.
so so you are okay. How long have you been doing this? Because I'm wondering what was your first iPhone that you had?
I believe the first iPhone I started taking pictures with was an iPhone 8. It is either 7 or 8. No,
Okay.
I take that back. I think it was a 7. I started this 2.5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Um, it was a 7, but it was a work phone. So I immediately put in for an iPhone 8
Oh
so I
yeah.
could get the better phone. But I found it really wasn't better until I got the iPhone 11. I'd say
Oh yeah.
they weren't all that much better if you were just taking a regular photo. Um, the iPhone 10 and 11 came with portrait and all that, but that's not necessarily what makes a photo good.
No, that's
So
right.
the iPhone 7 and iPhone 8 were, just as good. Had I known how to fix the focus and change the exposure, just simply those two things on an iPhone 5, I think the photos would have been, decent.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Uh, I think the iPhone has been really, really good at taking photos ever since the iPhone 4 came out. That was the first one I think that kind of set it above all the other mobile phones out there. And they've just been getting better and better. So you're on the 11 Pro now, is it?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. No. Okay. So I don't have that phone, so I have to ask. Have you shot with the deep fusion feature turned on?
No.
Okay. I kind of figured that because you like to take that stuff out of the say walls in a photograph, and I would imagine that that deep fusion feature would really enhance the texture and stuff that's in the walls.
Yeah. Yeah. So I need to get around to trying that, but um, yeah, I haven't done that yet. I've used it actually just like um, uh, my other phones, except for the wide angle.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that ultra wide.
yeah.
Hmm.
I wish one thing I really would like to see the iPhone 11 is with the iPhone 11. I know it's got stabilizer in it,
Hmm.
but Camera Plus has a thing that you can turn on that it doesn't take the photo until you're still.
Oh
And
yeah, right.
I
Hmm.
really need that because, two of the biggest reasons for blurry photos is a non-clean lens. People don't clean their lens. And you figure you pick up your phone probably 30, 40 times a day. That's
Yeah,
30 or 40 fingerprints on your lens.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And plus pressing the shutter too hard. And that's what I have to watch because I have a heavy thumb.
So do you
So
use the volume switch for the shutter, or you
I,
just
I,
tap the screen?
I don't often. I usually use just tap the screen because it's easier and
Yeah,
faster, you know.
yeah, yeah. I'm the same way. I far sooner just tap the screen. But what about using the self timer in Camera Plus?
I could do that. I use the usually in Camera Plus though I use the stabilizer and
Oh yeah.
the I rarely use the timer in anything unless I'm on a tripod because I have
Hmm.
the
Yeah,
same issue on a tripod. If you're pressing that shutter too hard, it doesn't matter
yeah,
that it's on a tripod. So I'll use like on the iPhone, I'll use the 3-second timer
yeah, yeah.
on
That's
a
right.
tripod.
Hmm. Yeah, so there is good stabilization in it, but I don't think anything can stabilize a heavy thumb.
Yeah.
So, um, so your creative process then, obviously is just first of all it's the capture. Is there any specific workflow that you have? Like, do you sometimes do you edit right there in the field, or do you wait till you get home and you can sit down and put your feet up and go through your images, and what kind of a process do you use that way?
I wait till I get home
Yeah.
and I always I always crop first.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, sometimes I can get several photos out of one. Uh, but I always crop first because if I'm not happy with the composition,
Hmm.
I'm not happy with the photo. And
Yeah.
a lot of photographers, their goal in the field is to get that perfect composition in the lens. And
Yeah.
I don't, for whatever reason, I don't try to do that at all. I just take pictures of everything. And it's not till I get home that I will move that frame around the photo. I'll go into crop, move that frame around the photo, and find something that really appeals to me.
Well, that's
So,
that's interesting. I'm one who rarely crops, to be honest with you. Uh, I strive to make an effort to get the composition right in the frame to begin with. I may crop to a 16:9 ratio or something like that, um, but I've never thought of the concept of getting multiple photos out of one. That's an interesting way of going about it, and probably one that not many people do. So, that just adds to the uniqueness of your art form for sure.
Yeah, I'm a big cropper, and sometimes at the expense of resolution, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
But you know how sometimes you don't see something in the field, you get home and this person has rabbit ears over their head, but you
Hmm.
didn't see it out there. I don't see the composition out there. So um, that's why I like to wait till I get home. And I have kind of uh, I kind of look at it as some photographers that want to capture the perfect thing in their lens. That lens is their blank canvas, and they paint it by moving the camera around and finding perfect angle and that kind of thing. I
Yeah.
don't get my blank canvas till I get the photo. That's my blank canvas. Then I start moving around and looking for uh, what I can find out of it.
Well, as far as the resolution part goes, as long as you don't have any aspirations of blowing these images up to on a larger scale, then they're fine. I mean, they're more than fine, especially for posting to some place like Instagram. Um,
Yeah, that is true.
you don't need full resolution to do that. So, that's more than okay. A friend of mine, Jack Hollingsworth, who's um, he was actually very uh, had a very large part of the development of Camera Plus originally, and I learned a lot of stuff from his tutorial videos that they produced with that app when it came out. And he says, there's no need to worry about big time resolution, especially if you're just going to post to social media. So, um, I generally don't worry too much about it myself unless I have a photo that I think I might want to, blow up. In fact, I had one on Instagram that a cousin of mine wanted me to blow up for her at like 20 by 30. So
Wow.
I couldn't crop it, obviously. So, but she liked it the way it was, which was good, a good thing. Um, so I was able to get that done for her. But as far as just posting online, oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the 12 megapixels that comes in the iPhone nowadays is plenty. It's plenty to work with, and to get more than one image out of it, that's even, that's just a bonus.
Yeah,
So
and for the rest of my workflow, um, I crop, and I usually do a general, exposure, contrast, the
yeah.
normal stuff,
Hmm.
and which I often go back and delete. Uh, but then I I usually start with selective editing after that, taking
Oh
detail
yeah.
out, putting it in, putting more contrast in one place or another. And I always, no matter what it is, I always just check to see if it looks good in black and white. But
Oh yeah.
more importantly than that, even if it's a properly colorful photo and you want to save it in color, you can see a lot that you may not be able to see when you put it in black and white, like this side of the picture is too dark or what have you. So I always go to black and white to check and see if it works, and to check and see where maybe it has some problem areas, then go back to color and try to fix them.
That is really interesting. That I that's a lot more thought put into it than I would ever do. But I'm definitely learning some stuff from you here by, that's something that I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try changing an image to black and white and seeing how it looks. And if it needs to be worked on in a certain part of the image, then I'll definitely look at that too. That
Yeah,
that's a very good. You should be teaching this stuff, Michelle.
I should. I would love to. I would love to do that.
Oh yeah, yeah. You could do well with it. Don't rule that out of your future by any means.
Okay, I'll write that
Yeah.
down. I like that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So your desire to shoot architecture, does that stem from anything from your professional life at all?
It it might. I like lines and curves. I am by education and my career. Uh, I worked as an electrical engineer for 37 years. So I am
Hmm.
drawn to numbers and lines. And I do see a lot of things in terms of math. I see diagonals and especially opposing diagonals when I look at even a scene in the woods. I see the fallen over trees, and I'm just really into opposing diagonals and parabolas and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
how I see things. So it probably
Yeah,
does.
that I think puts the to me anyway, that puts the final piece of the puzzle together for your photos and of especially your architecture photos and how they look. I mean, it's very evident that you're looking at lines and curves and things like that when you're shooting this stuff. It's just it's like it's drawn to your eye like like bees to honey because it just it's so evident and yeah it makes very good sense. Um,
Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. So do you have any place where like oh okay I like to ask this one too. Do you have a favorite camera app that you'd like to capture with? So you've mentioned Camera Plus and then you also use the native one, but do you ever use anything else or are those pretty much it?
Every once in a while, I'll use slow shutter. Is that the name of it? Slow shutter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, but when I got the iPhone 11, I didn't want to use it. I wanted the native camera. I wanted to use Camera Plus because that's what I was used to. And I made an effort. I went to Germany shortly after, and I said, "You are not going to take any pictures with Camera Plus, all iPhone 11," because I knew I wanted to use Camera Plus only because I was more familiar with it. So
Right.
I only used the native camera, and that was in December. And I've been pretty dedicated to using it since then. And I, especially with the three lenses and the portrait mode and all that. So I pretty much use IP11 under all circumstances. If it's real bright outside and I'm doing something that includes the clouds, I know this is strange. I'll sometimes pull up the Lightroom camera because if you're blown out, the Lightroom camera tells you it puts lines on the screen.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
but I have a fear of blowout, so I underexpose almost everything I take, which is not good. I'm trying to break that habit, but uh, yeah, that's
Well,
what I do.
in all honesty, I just recently read that if you're shooting like JPEG or HEIF um, in the say the native camera app or whatever camera app you choose to use, underexposing is the better way to go. Whereas if you're shooting in RAW format, then you've heard the old saying, shoot to the right or expose to the right. You want to slightly overexpose a little bit or if you have a histogram on the screen, expose so that that histogram goes to the right, but just to the edge. It doesn't get clipped off or anything, and then fix the rest of it in post. Uh, so I mean, actually underexposing slightly with the native camera app is probably not all that bad of a thing, especially since it's working.
Yeah, and it is easier to darken something than it is to lighten something. And
Yeah.
speaking of histograms uh, and workflows, I never, ever, ever look at the histogram
Oh, is that right?
because, yeah, and I know that's so taboo. But if I do and I try to make it more how it's supposed to be, I don't end up with the product that I want. In those, the histogram helps show you your extremes. And
Yeah.
I like extremes. So um, I just don't ever look at a histogram.
Well, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that don't use it. For me, I do use it, but again, it's mostly to keep everything, within the limits, right? As everything in between, I don't pay so much attention to. But the things that are, I try to keep it from blowing out the highlights and, getting black, like darkening out the shadows to the point where there's no information there. I like to try to keep everything in between. So, um, I mean, it's a tomato thing, right? There's so many people that don't use it, but then I think there's more people that don't use it than there are that do. So it's not a bad thing either way, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of too.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure it is. And when you're after a final look to your photo, it really doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there, right?
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really have no idea what my workflow is like compared to other people's because I have never seen another person edit. So I don't know the right way to do it or the what most people do.
Well, you know what? I don't think there is a right or a wrong way. If your way works for you, then that's the right way for you. Because my editing technique and my style is definitely different than yours. I could tell you that right now just by having this conversation. And that's why I was kind of blown away by some of the things that you said in the way you edit things, because it's so different than what I do, but it was so interesting as well. I think everybody that's what's called style, right? Everybody has their own style, not just a style of image, but I mean the style of the editing style to get to that image. Everybody has their own way, and um, basically that's it in a nutshell, and that's what makes photography or any kind of art form. That's what makes it so special and unique, and that everybody has their own style that they apply to their work, and it's kind of like a signature, right? It's putting a stamp on it that says, oh, that's a Michelle Simmons image. I could tell by looking at it.
Yeah, when I first started, I was so worried about what's my style going to be? What's my style going to be? I got to find my style. And
Hmm.
I couldn't. And it really wasn't until I just forgot about it that it's not something you do. It's something that kind of does you. It
Yes.
just eventually comes out and I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but I can't. It just the harder you try, the further away it gets almost. It
Yeah,
just
it's just something that has to happen naturally.
yeah, it kind of presents itself.
Yeah, 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 that's right. Do you have any aspirations for your work, or like do you have any place that you want to take it, or do you want to see it go anywhere, like publish a book or anything like that, or even teaching?
You know, I wouldn't mind teaching uh, uh, a couple times. I don't want a career of it. I
Right.
really
Yeah.
have done a few jobs and they were jobs. And I don't want it to be a job. For me,
Hmm.
I know it's a great and lucrative business for some people, but I retired a couple of years ago and I don't want to take that element of I don't have to do this. I want to out of it.
Right. Yeah.
No, I'm just going around. I'm still trying to find. I'm trying to do a lot of stuff that I never have done before, which I've been doing from the beginning. You know, I would do portraits, and in the last few weeks, I've been trying still lifes and
Oh
driving
yeah.
myself crazy. And everything is like still lifes are so much harder than I could ever imagine. But
And they're not
I
even moving.
I know. And there's hardly nothing there usually. It's
Yeah.
like, how do people make this look so good? I saw a photo of a scoop of ice cream in an ice cream scoop laying on the blank table. There was nothing else in the photo that was so gorgeous. I wanted to try to recreate it. I spent 2 days and got nothing. It's like, how did they
Wow.
make this look so good, you know? And
That's,
I'm
that's
just,
crazy.
it is. I'm just, but it makes me respect those type of artists so much more. I'm just starting to
Yeah.
play around with lighting too. I've always just used natural light, nothing else.
Yeah.
But I won this thing from Pictar that you can. It's an LED light, and you can change the intensity of it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and I was trying to take a photo of. I was doing the still life thing with the ice cream, and and I was trying to light it and hold this thing, but I couldn't hold it and hold my phone and focus, etc. And I didn't want to
Yeah.
use a tripod. But what I figured out, I have a selfie stick that I sometimes use if I want to get way up high or way down low.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's got a Bluetooth shutter button. I put the light in that selfie stick instead of the camera, and I could just move the light around till I found the right place for it, and then use the Bluetooth to take the photo while I was still holding the phone steady.
Oh, that is
And
so smart.
it was so cool. And I discovered it after 2 days of really ridiculous trial and error. I couldn't believe the mistakes I
That
was making.
that
But
is thinking outside the box.
yeah, it just kind of happened. And so now I have a new method to roll my light around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool.
And I
Uh,
also want to experiment a little bit with smoke bombs,
oh yeah.
photography smoke bombs. Yes, I'd like to do
Hmm.
that with my dancer niece. Um,
Oh yeah.
see what we can come up with. The issue is I can't even really practice because it's about $10 a pop. And
Oh wow.
I know me, it's going to take me 10 of them to figure out the best way to do it. But I do have a
Yeah.
couple I'd like to try.
Well, you might be lucky enough to get a really good photo with the first time.
Maybe.
There,
Maybe,
there's
yeah.
an old saying that I sometimes go by that it's the even a blind squirrel will find a nut once in a while.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I really hope that an image like that pops up on your Instagram feed sometime because I would love to see what you can do with that.
You'll see one sooner or later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, is there anything that you'd like to plug? Where we could find you online and all that stuff?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Mish Z Simmons, MICHZSIMMONS. And you asked about aspirations. I
Yeah.
I don't have any like big time money making aspirations like a book or class or whatever. But really, my aspiration is uh, to find the people that really like my style, my art. So
Yeah.
if if anybody likes it at Miss Z Simmons, I'll be looking forward to meeting you.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I love about these photo sharing communities is the people that you meet. I mean, being able to talk to you about your stuff. It's just the icing on the cake for being a member of these communities. And I'm able to experience that on Instagram, with the Artful Eye Photography community where this podcast originates from, and also on Dayflash. I think Dayflash is a great place where you might meet some people, who have similar interests as you. I see a lot of architectural images on there. I see a lot of images on there with ballerinas and dancers and things like that. Um, I think if you checked out Dayflash, you would really, really like what you see, and it would be a great addition to your portfolio, alongside Instagram. Like everybody that's on Dayflash is pretty much on Instagram as well. So there's always that cross promotion type of thing going on, and okay, just full disclaimer, I am an ambassador of Dayflash, so I do like to try to help people. I do like to try to help people get over there, but you know, if you've never seen Dayflash, the experience, just the user experience of Dayflash is so much nicer than anything else I've seen, because the images are full screen on your phone, and I mean, just have a look and see what you think. I'll even send you a couple of screenshots of architectural images and dancer images, and I'll let you judge for yourself what you think. But your Instagram feed is amazing, and I'm so glad that it's there.
Thank you.
Because I like your images, I see them more often, which is a good thing. But I would love to see them on Dayflash, because they would be so much bigger on the screen, and there's definitely cropping because it's a vertical orientation when you look at Dayflash, and I don't know, you just have a look at it and see what you think. But it's been just absolutely a real treat talking to you, Michelle, and getting to know you a little bit better. I've definitely learned a few things about, different ways to alter my workflow, possibly, depending on the image, I guess, with the selective editing and the cropping and all that stuff. And I think there's definitely some lessons to be learned from your style of capture and editing and all that stuff. So, thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. It was a pleasure. And I'll check out Dayflash, and I appreciate you and what you do. And just thank you. And thanks everybody for listening.
Oh, yes, definitely. So just stay on the line here after we sign off, and I'll just get any last bits of information from you. But I just want to remind everybody that, first of all, I guess I should say where you can find me. So Michelle is Michz Simmons on Instagram. You can find me at Macmillan Photo on Instagram, and I'm on Dayflash. My username is Macmillan. You can find this podcast at artfulipc.com, and the community that goes along with it is artfulipc.club. And I don't put these episodes out regularly like some other podcasts and stuff do, but I record them whenever I can get somebody lined up to do an interview. And you can get the podcast on the Apple Podcast app, or on Downcast or Overcast, and probably just about any podcast app that you can imagine. And we're also on iHeartRadio. Just search for Artful Eye Photography Interviews and look for the cover photo of a microphone, and you'll be able to find us. The podcast is hosted on artfulipc.com, and that's where you can find the show notes and links to the guests and anything that we talk about. If you're listening and you think you might want to do an interview, you can hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. My Twitter name is McMillan_photo. You can send me a DM there. And I guess that's about it. So thanks again, Michelle. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on, and we will hopefully be in touch again.
Thank you, Greg.